Hello to all you wonderful people out there. Today we will be covering some pretty exciting stuff, so sit down, buckle up, and get ready for your minds to be blown. The exciting topics we will be discussing today are the science and importance of biomimicry. Now, we're going to work this from the bottom to the top so there are no gaps in your knowledge by the end. In a nutshell, biomimicry, also known as biomimetics, is the process of looking to nature to solve for complex problems in human life. More specifically, scientists look to the adaptations of plants and animals that have developed over hundreds of generations through the process of natural selection. For those who don't know, natural selection is where certain members of a species live their life and reproduce, while other members die off and never have a chance to reproduce. The idea is that those special members that do get a chance to reproduce are the best fit members who carry better adaptations for survival. The adaptations, be it stronger muscles, longer legs, or darker fur, are then carried on through the offspring. The adaptations of certain species are meant to solve for specific problems that the members of those species may encounter. For example, if a deer with lighter fur is spotted by a predator and dies by the hands of that predator, while a deer with darker fur is not spotted and lives on to reproduce, then the problem of being seen by a predator is solved by the adaptation of darker fur. Scientists use these solutions offered by adaptations to develop new advancements in technology and science. Using the example previously given, scientists can use darker shaded clothing to design better camouflage. A simple and common example of biomimicry is Velcro. Velcro replicates how those annoying burrs of plants stick to your pants and socks and don't ever let go. This idea was taken, then applied to clothing and other objects. Anyways, with the explanation and basics all done and tucked away inside that marvelous head of yours, we're going to move on to the history. The term biomimicry is actually fairly new and came into play in the 1980s when an author and scientist by the name Janine Benyes published her book Biomimicry, Innovation Inspired by Nature. However, the concept of taking models and systems from nature dates all the way back to Leonardo da Vinci and possibly further. You see, Leonardo da Vinci was a very smart man who did most of his work during the 1460s through to the 15 teens. His areas of strength included invention, painting, mathematics, architecture, science, music, engineering, anatomy, geology, astronomy, writing, history, architecture, sculpture, and cartography. Like I said, smart guy. For the moment, we are only going to be exploring his inventive side. Leonardo sketched out many designs throughout his life. He designed a flying contraption based off of his studies on bird wings and wing functionality. Although the contraption never worked, this is still a prime example of looking to nature to solve for situation. Obviously, at some point in time, a flying machine was made, or else we wouldn't see those loud, silver, man-made birds in the sky we call planes. The first functional flying machine was created by two individuals, the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, were two American brothers born in 1867 and 1871. The brothers were inventors who created the first successful airplane. Now, the reason why the Wright brothers are important in relation to biomimicry is because, much like old Leonardo, the Wright brothers studied the wings of pigeons to help them with their designs. Throughout this whole time, there still wasn't a specific scientific term for taking concepts from nature and applying them to technologies. That is, until the 1950s. During the 1950s, a biophysicist by the name of Otto Schmidt was doing research on the nerves of a squid. Schmidt was attempting to replicate the biological system of the nerves. Throughout his career, Schmidt continued to engineer devices that he was mimicking from nature. This work led to Schmidt having a new view of biophysics and came to call his work biomimetics, and thus the actual science of biomimetics was created. Now that you have all that stupendous and wonderful information completely memorized, we can move on to the fun stuff. The applications of biomimicry. As we discussed earlier, there are many adaptations in plants and animals that could potentially be copied and applied to human lives. Allow me to go through some examples. Swimwear with reduced drag replicated from shark skin due to its special properties. New climbing gear copied from properties in gecko hands that allow geckos to climb up flat surfaces. Better cutting tools replicated from self-sharpening teeth found in many animals. Treads of tires based on the pads of tree frogs. Improved digital displays with everlasting color created from the light refracting properties of butterflies. Better designed solar panels that copy the patterns of plant leaves and have applied special non-reflectant properties of moth eyes. Since I have given a whole lot of examples but no explanation for any of them, we're going to move on to the science of how some of these examples have or might work. Let's start back at swimwear and shark skin. I said that swimwear could be created with less drag by copying the properties of shark skin. This is because sharks have super extra special skin comprised of microscopic dermal scales. These dermal scales overlap in a pattern that is smooth going in one direction and rough going the other. As the shark swims through the water flows along the shark in one direction, and the scales line up with that direction. The scales reduce friction between the shark and the water, benefiting the shark because it doesn't have to use as much energy when swimming. There is a potential of reducing drag in swimwear if the shark skin scales are replicated and applied to the swimwear. Next, we could have better climbing gear created from gecko hands. Gecko hands have layered skin that adheres to the surfaces it is forced upon without using liquids or surface tension. The pattern of the layers of the skin on the gecko's hands allow for attraction between them and the surface. These attractive forces are known as van der Waals forces. If these properties are applied to gloves and boots, we could have actual Spider-Man. And, of course, safe climbing. But Spider-Man! Ahem. Anyways, back to the examples. Solar panels could become much more efficient using several applications copied from nature. For one thing, plants have been collecting energy from the sun much longer than we have. So if we apply the patterns of leaves on certain plants to arrange and organize solar panels, they may become more efficient. Current solar panels also tend to be quite reflective, which ends up pushing the solar light and energy back into the atmosphere, which then continues to raise global temperatures. If an anti-reflectant coating used for eye lenses or found in moth's eyes was applied to the solar panels, they could become more environmentally friendly and more efficient due to them absorbing more light. We're starting to get to the end of this video, so let's wrap it up with why biomimicry is so important. As I have shown throughout this video, biomimicry can help solve for many different problems. Well, biomimicry can, and will solve much larger problems than swimwear and televisions. Scientists have recently discovered the existence of what is being called superbacteria. Basically, when a person gets a bacterial infection, doctors prescribe the person with antibiotics. These antibiotics kill off the bacteria causing the infection, or that's the idea at least. Let me ask you this, what happens when a bacteria survives the antibiotic? Just in case we're not on the same page, let me guide you through it. When a bacteria survives the attack of an antibiotic, that means the bacteria are resistant to that antibiotic. These bacteria are effectively incurable and are able to reproduce and thrive inside the host. These bacteria are then dubbed superbacteria, and at the moment, there is no cure for them. However, scientists are studying our trusty pal, Mr. Shark, for a possible solution. As I was saying earlier, shark skin is comprised of lots and lots of microscopic scales. Well, these scales happen to be quite wavy as well, like a bunch of rolling hills. Scientists have discovered that the waviness of the scales helps prevent bacterial growth. So we have our scales and we know they're wavy, but how does this stop bacterial growth? Basically, because the bacteria can fall in between each hill and grow individually within each valley. However, the bacteria in one valley is incapable of connecting with its neighbor. This effectively stops the bacteria from growing out of control. If nanotechnology was designed based on the shape and function of shark skin, then it could be given to people through an oral pill that could help stop the growth of superbacteria. Biomimicry isn't just important because it can help solve medical problems, it can help solve energy problems as well. Recently, scientists at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology created a self-assembling synthesized solar cell. What this means is that the scientists created a man-made plant cell with man-made chloroplasts. Just for clarification, solar cells are plant cells that contain chloroplasts, which collect energy from the sunlight. The plant uses the energy, known as photons, to break down other compounds such as carbon dioxide and water in order to make a sugar known as glucose. When the glucose is created, there is a surplus of oxygen that is also created, so the plant releases the oxygen into the air where we humans can then breathe it. This whole process is known as photosynthesis. Now, looking back to the MIT solar cell, we can see that it is quite remarkable. The scientists created a solar cell from several compounds including carbon nanotubes and synthetic phospholipids. The nanotubes are used for structure and to transport energy, while the phospholipids are used for structural support and to help collect solar energy. Other compounds make up the reaction center, where the solar energy is mainly collected to produce electricity. The really cool thing about the solar cells is that they are self-assembling. What this means is that when or if they are damaged, the solar cell can release a liquid known as a surfactant, which in turn does two things for the solar cell. One, it tears the components in the cell such as the nanotubes and phospholipids apart. And two, it decreases the pressure inside the solar cell so that it can heal itself. Once the surfactant has left the cell, the compounds that were previously torn apart can now reassemble into a fully functioning solar cell. The solar cells are currently 40% efficient and can be improved. This is absolutely spectacular. These tiny little buggers are not only a technological and scientific advancement, but they are also helping solve the world's energy problems. I believe that this technology can advance even further and replicate how plants consume carbon dioxide and put out oxygen. Then these solar cells will not only be helping with electricity, but will also be producing oxygen while decreasing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Before I go, I'll leave you with something to think about. We, as the human race, have been around for tens of thousands of years. The planet and nature have been around for hundreds of millions of years. There is no human-made system that wouldn't benefit from copying an already existing, near-perfect system produced by nature. Humans have indeed created many things in the relatively short time that they have been on this planet. However, so has nature. If we compare how humans create things to how nature makes things, we see quite a surprising difference. When we look to human creation, we see burning of fossil fuels and organic matter like trees. When we look to nature, we see creation from nature itself. We see new and interesting designs developed from time, sunlight, and water. When we truly compare humans' pursuits and discoveries and nature's alternative route to new creation, we see that humans are disgusting and dirty in their pursuits, while nature is just that, natural and clean. In the late 1700s and the early 1800s, people cut down and burned trees thinking it was the only way for them to survive and create, without even knowing that there was oil just below their feet. Then, in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, the Industrial Revolution took off with the discovery of oil and new fuels. So far, all we have seen is people burning and destroying in order to create their very own things. Much like how we found oil long ago, we need to discover something new that will once again revolutionize the world of invention. Something more like nature. Something that will truly make Captain Planet want to give us all high fives. Alrighty folks, I've been your host, Owen McCubbin, and I'd like to thank you for watching, and I wish you all a great day.